Now, there are, in general, you get three kinds of responses to the kind of things that we're talking about when we start talking about obeying and teaching the things that Jesus taught. And I've had a lot of joy and delight in teaching this to people, especially get them cornered in a place like this, and get the intensity. And actually, I think you can learn a lot about how to teach people that do the things that Jesus said just by reflecting on your experience here in terms of the intensity. Remember what I said about you can't get a shower by one drop every 5 minutes for 3 years. Most of what we do in the way of church services is like that, frankly. And so a part of our strategy, if we're going to teach people, is to arrange different occasions. I don't recommend that you throw out what we do in the way of regular church services, though I do have some recommendations that I will talk about after brunch about changing them somewhat. But in general, you don't start by changing things like that. Yeah, if you do, you'll just have a wonderful brawl. Even trying to change the way the seating is arranged in an auditorium is like the Civil War all over again. Now, what I have found is that people struggle on these first three paths of Christian progress. One is to try harder to live up to the commandments. Don't do it. And that's what makes people hopeless. Obviously, there should be a desire to keep the commandments, but you don't get there by trying harder. I mentioned earlier that the secret is not trying, but training. And that's what I've been trying to do and lay a foundation for in what we have spent our time on. Number two is live in defeat. It's remarkable how much there is that recommends this today. I want to call it to your attention and not mention any names. But once you understand this, you will recognize it as you read popular magazines and books and things of that sort. That the response to the problem is call it brokenness and rest on forgiveness by grace. Well, you better do that anyway. But brokenness has become exalted in recent years as a constant condition in which you must live. Don't sing that song to me about victory in Jesus. There ain't no victory in Jesus. You just stay broken until you're dead and out of here, and something will automatically happen, and you'll become a person who is comfortable in righteousness, probably because you are rid of that despicable sack you call your body. So there's tons of misunderstandings here, some of which I've touched on more or less, but just think a moment about the first two. Try harder or give up. And as I say, I don't want to mention names. Some of them are very popular, they're very good people, and they're very good writers, but you can identify them. Say, where does it come out? And actually a good place, I will say, a good place to watch for this is in the magazine Christianity Today. And I mention that because it's a very balanced magazine. It's a very good magazine. But watch what shows up. And you're going to identify one way you let the steam off is live in brokenness. And that will go with the gospel that is predominant in those circles, which is forgiveness. Yes, ma'am.
If you try to help people differentiate
excuse me.
brokenness and humility, how would you go about defining the difference?
I would say that humility empowers you and brokenness doesn't. You remember what humility is now, and here again, I go back to the books. What?
Living independence.
Absolutely right. Give that girl an A in the course. That's right. Now you see, brokenness is a limited form of dependence. It's dependence on forgiveness. Yes.
What would you think of this idea that there's a degraded brokenness, which is the brokenness that Christ came to heal, and we don't live in that, but we live in a state of holy brokenness, which is Isaiah 6, and woe is me because I need the holiness of God to make me.
Well, now, you need to go through that. The question is if you're going to live there. Right. And now, the way that would show up as you go on would precisely be learning more and more of dependence upon God. But as you learn more and more of dependence upon God, you are going to find that you don't have to try harder, and that you wind up doing what Jesus said. See, the second point here goes with living in Romans 7. You understand what I'm saying? It goes with living in Romans 7. You just don't go on to chapter 8. You just say, woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. Who shall deliver me from this body of death? Nobody is going to deliver me. I'm so broken. Paul didn't do that. He moved right on. Now, having been broken was a great benefit to him. But that wasn't his whole life. Now, in one retreat setting, a wonderful fellow named Don Ingebretson. I don't know if you know him. He's a part of the leadership of one of the denominations in Chicago. A wonderful man. After struggling with this for most of his life, trying harder for the most part, because actually if you do believe, number two, your conscience will not leave you alone. And you'll wind up trying harder. And so in the process of the experience and the teaching, the third option here is progress toward the character and power of Christ by indirection. That's the way disciplines work, is indirection. That's true in any area. You don't just start with Beethoven's Appassionata Sonata and try real hard to play it. If you succeeded, it wouldn't be because you have become a musician. Maybe you have become a robot. Progress toward the character and power of Christ by indirection, discipleship and active grace with disciplines in the process of spiritual formation towards Christ-likeness. Now, I would like to just pause a moment and ask you to look at that and see if you feel you understand it, because this is the whole deal as far as the human side of holiness is concerned. This was Don's exclamation when he came in about the middle of the second week of the retreat. This is too good not to be true. It's too good not to be true. And the fact of it is that this is the scriptural teaching in the New Testament. This is the record of the people of Christ down through the ages. There's a lot of deviation and missing, and it doesn't make you perfect, and you can't reduce it to a mechanism. That's one reason why I purposely avoid trying to package this stuff too tightly, is because it isn't meant to be like that. It is meant to be a personal walk with the Lord. It is meant to be a personal walk with the Lord. And when we are helping people with it, we want to remember that we can instruct them, we can set examples, we can answer questions, we can do all of that, but what it comes down to is what is happening with them and the Lord.